In this video, I'm going to draw this thing, a splash screen / poster style image based on a comic that I created quite a few years ago called Ara. This is a fantasy comic, and my goal here is just to create a really kind of fun, punchy image, and I'm going to share my process from start to finish in real time in Photoshop with you. Now, as you may have noticed, this is quite a long video, 4 hours or so as you can see, but I think it's really important to share the process of how art is actually created. In the long run, this is actually not that long for an image of this type, and I'm just going to share with you all of the ideas that are rattling around in my head as I create it, and I think it's important to show that this is how art is actually done. So hopefully you join me for the ride. Let's jump in and get started. Alright, welcome to the Drawing Codex. My name is Tim McBurney. I've been a professional working artist for over 20 years, and on this channel, we're all about drawing cool stuff from our imagination, embracing the challenge of drawing, and mastering the craft of line and color illustration. Now, if you'd like to learn more about line and color illustration, you can check out my free QuickStart guide. It's aimed to get you up and running quickly in Photoshop, developing your own simple, reliable line and color process and style. You'll get access to all of the brushes and Photoshop documents and tricks and tips that I use as I create the illustration in this guide. It's free, the link will be in the description, so go check that out if that's something you're interested in. All right, here we are in Photoshop. Now, for this particular session, I'm going to do something a little bit different, I guess. I'm going to create a kind of more complicated composition. And I think this should be a fun little exercise to do. It might take me a little bit longer than I normally take on these type of art ritual videos. But the basic idea is I'm going to create a little kind of scene poster style image based on my comic. So I've got some reference up here that you can see. And what I'm going to do is take this thumbnail that I created. And here I can get it up here so we can see. Go boom. So you can kind of see that, yeah, this one is like, it's not really a tiny thumbnail, right? It's kind of big, but it's still kind of like in that compositional sketch style, not that big, right? And it kind of gives me a rough idea of what I need to do. So that's basically where we're going with this. Now, what I did is just took a photo of that sketchbook with my camera, and then I just upload that to Dropbox, and bang, it appears here. And that's kind of what I've got there. Now, what I've done is I have taken that into Photoshop, and I've just zoomed it up, and I have a pretty large file here. It's about 12,000 pixels wide. I'm going to use this just for the kind of basic sketching. Now, the first stage that I'm going to do here is to just make sure that I've got some kind of color composition that's going to work. So again, normally I'm not doing this step, but I think it's going to be really important here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about thumbnails and color thumbnails and what we need and what we don't need. It's going to be very, very simple with it. So I've got a base, and this is normally how I'm going to work with this, is that I'm just going to use the flat brush, the pencil tool, and that just gives me a super flat shape. And what I'm going to try and do is try and cut out some of these shapes that I have and try and just look at the overall graphic composition. Now, this is super rough, but this is often actually how I do these types of things, because let's create one for this sword. Because often we just don't actually have that much time, right? That's just the reality of it. So what I'm doing here, let's get those out. Control J. Yeah, let's fill that back. So I'm creating basically a series of layers. And I'm going to use this to help me separate out these different elements that I have here. And once I've got that, then I'm going to use it. See, that didn't work very well. I have Yeah, not sure why that one didn't. Didn't stay. So I've kind of, it's because this is a pretty complicated composition, right? And really only I know really what's going on, because we've just got blobs. But this is where it all starts, is thinking about the abstract composition that we have and the fundamental shapes. And if we can't get this working, right, if we can't sort of zoom out and get something interesting, then it's not going to work. And I also had sort of in mind to do a bit of text here, because I thought that might be an interesting little addition that we can have. So basically, I'm just making blobby shapes. And I have a blobby shape back here that I think should be a little bit more blue. All right, this one. And this type of image is a little bit similar to like a movie poster or a cover. It's a particular sort of style of image that has its kind of own sort of rules, right? Things that work, things that don't work. But it is abstract in nature, which I think is why it's quite sort of good to learn, because it allows us to focus very much on the abstract, like pure style composition. Now, I'm often talking about how narrative composition is something where we don't necessarily need to think about all of the abstract ideas that you might have, again, when you're dealing with like a landscape, an environmental painting, something that doesn't necessarily have a story with characters in it. When we have a story with characters in it, what happens is that people often just look at the characters. There is a story there, and often we need to have certain things occur. Otherwise, yeah, look, none of it makes sense. So you kind of spend most of your time in that instance just trying to make it work. So what I'm going to do here is, I think what I'm going to do is res this down, because this is, even if I just kind of keep it simple, it's still going to be pretty epic. So let me just res this down a little bit. There we go. Just resed it down. Again, that mostly because this workstation I'm working on is not as powerful as some of the other workstations that I have. I always forget that. It's very easy to, work on some crazy resolution thing if you have a super powerful workstation. Otherwise, we often need to think about it a little bit more. So trying to think about what color these different elements are going to be. Still using like very simple color scheme. All right. Let's see if we can think about the basic color scheme that we want here. So what I've got, I'm going to lock that, pressing the question mark / key. And she has quite a few. Let's make a few extra layers. She has quite a few sort of dark elements to her costume that I'm just going to put in now, and we'll block these in. So this is the cape back here. This is going to be this tree sort of growth stuff that's happening. Next I've got her kind of costume. Got costume here, right? There's going to be a little bit more costume there. Now underneath that, I'm going to put sort of skin tone, and what I'm going to do first is just block it in. Now again, if this bit's boring, it's I think this is probably the the least sort of interesting to watch. But this is where all the magic happens, I think. When we're planning images, getting this stuff right really, really helps. And we can do a lot of good here, essentially. Boom. Boom. So again, still super rough. That's okay. The goal is to, again, sort of ease up on these bits and pieces. Boom. Think about the composition we've got going. And we're just looking for that sort of thumbnail look. Like, what does it look like back here? So at the moment, for me, I'm like, it's not working. It's not going well. This is not working at all. And yeah, the process is very much a matter of refining that. But what we want to do is ease up on it. Make sure that I'm doing the important bits first. And then kind of slowly refine. So again, we don't really even have a good sense of anatomy there. But again, this is telling us what we do have and where the value is going to be. All right, so just making random layers, and I will collapse all of these down later. Boom. So again, some of these hair shapes can be major compositional elements. Help make sure everything flows. And what's sort of going to happen here is that like this is kind of going to fade into this. Now this is quite a tricky thing to do from in the line and color style. And this is one of the major reasons why I just think we need to plan this. So I feel like that kind of makes it a little bit more interesting from a compositional standpoint. And I've got these shapes here. And again, if this doesn't work, then there's not much we can really do. So I'd sort of talk about like what's happening in the composition here, because it might be a little bit vague, right? It might be a little bit like, what is going on? So we sort of have, again, this weird non-spatial diorama composition. We have the main character Ara in the foreground, and she has the sort of tree mode style. Let's see if I can create something over the top of that to make it a little bit clearer. Yeah, she kind of has the... She's in sort of tree mode here. So she has these branches, has this stuff growing out off her. Got some leaves flying in the foreground. And then we have this character, which is one of the big bad sort of characters. And I can just sample that kind of color, right, to give us a rough idea. And he is kind of down here and fighting off a whole bunch of these other little characters. Now this will be quite tricky to draw all of these things and make them work at scale, but I think it should work okay. And basically this guy here is this guy, this sort of king of the forest demons, the forest creatures. So again, I've got like a rough place for where he's going to go. But now I'm going to really go in there and make it work. So just sort of, come on, just zoom this out so we can see a bit of what's going on. So lots of multiple elements that are going to join together. And we'll have some good overlap. One of the most important things to do here is to create good areas of overlap so that these things actually function. If we don't do that, I really think with these types of compositions, it can all end badly. All right, so we're going to have these iconic shapes here. And this scene here is kind of blending into this scene here. So we can have this guy, and he is above, sort of looking down. So the size is relative. Again, you see this sort of design with a lot of the like sort of Drew Struzan old school Star Wars posters and things. Again, you know, the idea is often just to get the most amount of stuff on screen as you can and make it sort of look epic. Again, just always thinking about composition on the large scale. And I've got a few little sort of explosions that are going to happen here. That again are part of like a different scene. But that'll help give a little bit of, again, complexity here. And then we're going to have some more of these characters sort of over here. And then we got more of them over here. And at the moment, these are just kind of blobs, right? Because we're just thinking about composition and what works. So we do need to kind of think about continuing some of this, right? Are we going to have green? Are we going to have blue? Not entirely sure. This is where it's really good to, again, have a small thumbnail so we can experiment and think about, like, is it dark on light, light on dark? The other thing we could do is make it really sort of dramatic. Again, many of these things would probably work. But I think I kind of had in mind that we were going to have sort of blue background, right? Like this is kind of the theme of the whole thing. And then what I had as an idea was to put some text in here. I think it's going to need to be about 1 billion times bigger. And here, just going to play around with some different sort of fonts. There's not a lot of rhyme or reason to the way I would do this. But I have left a little left a little hole there for that. Oh. Yeah, I feel like this screen is super twitchy. But yeah, might be better to do something really it's a bit extreme, but we'll see. Making it smaller. Go. Make it even smaller. Just playing around. Again, Photoshop's type tools are not great, right? But this is exactly how I would do it. So that is at least giving us a good indication of like where is this stuff going to sit. And I think what we can kind of see is like we could probably shift that over here a little bit now that we have that text there. I think someone did ask like a while ago in a comment, how do you do text stuff? And yeah, this is basically how I would do this kind of thing. Now I have also got some guides that will tell me what will fit into like a YouTube thumbnail, which might sort of be useful for me here. So I'm gonna sort of make sure that, yeah, let's put that there. And yeah, I mean, I think that'll probably work okay. Cool. All right, so we're still like in the it's all right. It's not really working. But at least this gives me an idea for a couple of really important things. And firstly, it's telling me like where I need added complexity, because when we're doing a thumbnail, I guess it's one thing to kind of focus on the big picture, and once those things are in, then you kind of see like, yes, the big picture is maybe working, but also we need to have like a certain degree of complexity, I often feel, in order to really sell, right? In order to really sell the idea. And I need to often homogenize some of these colors together in order for them to work. So really thinking about like this stuff is in the background, right? This stuff is in the foreground. Getting the hierarchy, getting that sorted, thinking about how that's going to work. This is where the thumbnail is important because it gives me a plan, right? And it tells me, hey, draw this stuff here. Don't draw that stuff there, right? And it will kind of work. So I'm sort of like zooming out, right? If we kind of imagine that we crop it out like that, I think we can see that there is some sort of interesting, like the thumbnail kind of does work, right? And I think that's cool to see. What I'm often going to do at this stage is, still play around with adding stuff. So there's a couple of things that I would sort of try and add that will tell me, like where to add stuff like these flying leaves. I've got a good way that I can now go in here and say, well, and here's the text. Now I just want some extra complexity. And there was also a lot of ideas that I sort of had about potentially adding some stuff as foreground as well, right? Some elements as foreground, which will add, again, just another layer of complexity to everything. I was also going to have her horns, right, be in that sort of growth mode. She's sort of becoming like a tree, which is, again, part of the story. And yeah, probably good to have a little bit of this kind of coming over here, so it feels like we have some consistency with the background. So again, like what I could have behind there are some very simple trees, right? Boom, boom, boom. Right. So again, this is super rough, but this is me giving myself an idea of what I need to do. And likewise here, having some foreground stuff here that might help to frame things. Again, looking at the thumbnail of it. And continuing this concept of these leaves here coming. Again, we can have some being in the foreground, right? So again, pretty simple. Let's group this text. Select all, computers chugging, Control G. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to clip it there, and then we can, Photoshop's completely chugging. You may have hit window, arrange, new window. Yeah, cool. I think we just hit that Photoshop bug. Boom. Boom. Control U. This will allow me to adjust the color of the text. And we can play around with it here. Again, good idea to zoom out. Just look. Right, think about it. Like maybe, yeah, I mean, I think I don't necessarily think that original idea was the worst idea for the logo color. So again, we'll play around with the text, make it a little bit more interesting as we progress, but this is giving me a good idea of what might happen. and how we might make this interesting. So again, still good to think about some overall big sort of color shifts and things we could do to make this more dynamic. I think again, I'm probably going to try and go for something like this, right? So again, let's duplicate. All right, think about that color. All right, again, that might be a bit extreme, but what I'm after is like a serious color pop, right? I want this thing to look cool as a thumbnail, and that's a good sort of design thing to go by, right? Like, how do we make this look dynamic? Oh. All right, so yeah, we can also put some gradients there. All right, think about adding some stuff. But yeah, I think that's probably good enough for now. That sort of gives me like something to go by. And all I'm sort of feeling at the moment is that okay, I've got these kind of colors down here. Yeah, I mean, what I am feeling is that we just need like a few more little bits of this type of fire. Maybe kind of over here. To balance it out. Because again, it is feeling kind of a little bit unbalanced, but again, there's lots and lots of ways we can balance that properly. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's kind of there. I feel like we could still go a little bit, right? Just try and give ourselves a little bit of room to breathe with the text. Or what we could do is try and move the text. All right, like let's have this one. Let's line it up here. Boom. And that way, yeah, got something that might work. Cool. So again, I might play with the font sort of later on. That might be something that's kind of worth exploring, but we'll kind of keep it as is just for the moment and see what happens once I kind of add some extra stuff to it. I feel like at the moment it's kind of flat, and one of the things that text often does is it offers good flatness to contrast the texture elsewhere. So it might be that, again, when we do add it, it kind of works okay. But anyway, that's all for the thumbnail phase. I think, the next stage is to build a small construction drawing and then get to actual drawing. Right, before we do that, I do want to play with this text though a little bit. I feel like this thing is working overall, but yeah, let's just play around, see if we can get some slight separation, and yeah, just play around because I think this will be important. Control U, see about making it a little bit. I mean, I feel like something. Maybe like that. Hard to say. Yeah, it's just sort of not quite coming forward as much. And I'll play around with some of the treatment later on. But yeah, let's see if we can duplicate this. Edit. T. Yeah, let's see if we can find a slightly different different font. Yeah, it doesn't seem... I mean, that seems a little bit more fun. Again, I have a background in graphic design, but mostly I just play around. I never went down the hardcore font road. So I'm often just kind of playing around and doing it visually. I feel like it might be good to have like a little and here. See if we can just get this. Move that maybe there. Yeah, I feel like that's like a little bit more interesting maybe. Undo, but yeah, I don't know, maybe not. I think the other one was kind of like a bit more, yeah, a bit more simple. Who knows? Anyway, that's kind of what I do if I was doing that, is just, you know, play around, mess around, you know, see what works, see what doesn't work. But yeah, let's leave this here. And so the next phase is essentially a drawing phase. And so what I'm going to do is transfer these things from that thumbnail, if I can find it. So I'm going to take the basic idea here that we got, make it obviously big. And so this means now I've only just got one layer, right? And what I do is take that off. Let's do that without the borders on. So again, this doesn't have to be exact or anything. But now I've got one flat layer, right? And I've been able to experiment here. Pretty simple process. What I might do is take this, move it over here, and we'll sort of res it up, make sure it matches there. Let's cut out that gradient. All right. Oh man, this machine is so slow. It should not be this slow. It is plenty fast. Anyway, so now we got some text that's up there. And yeah, the next stage is super simple. It's going to create a white layer in between. And I'm going to leave this to be so I can still see most of it. And what I'm going to do is go through and do some construction drawing. And yeah, this is where we're going to do some even more ugly drawing. Really try and knot down all of the little details here. Got the nose. amount of the mouth that I'm going to draw in there. And in a bit, we'll flip it as well, just to check that. But yeah, this is where just considering all of the dimensionality that we need. Where are the bones of the face? Here we've got the brow. All right, here we're going to have some cheekbones. Right, just looking at how much symmetry we've got. And the goal is to make sure that when I do the next phase, that we've basically got everything that we need. Now, there's lots of different ways that people view these ideas of penciling or construction. The way that I always like to view it personally is to think about, what do I need for this next phase? What do I personally need to take the art to the next stage? Sometimes I'm going to need to really figure things out. Other times I am just going to be able to wing it. It's all a matter of figuring out which is which. Which bits do we need? Which bits do we not need? And here, again, think about adding in some of those costume elements of the armband. 1, 2, 3. Remember which way they go. But yeah, so I'm just constructing the basic anatomy. As I said, I'm doing it pretty rough and in a really structural manner. And I'm just using, again, just almost like a pen. Again, this is just first pass, right? We'll see what happens with some of it as we go. All right, let's see if we can just construct this a little bit more. Think about what's happening. Do we have symmetry? And this is where we can rotate. Just constantly rotating is also another really good, interesting way to make sure that we have, well, yeah, that we have good symmetry, right? So we can flip the image, right? You know, flip it around. But making sure that you just kind of keep rotating is another way to just get a different look at it, right? If you just keep rotating it, again, eventually I feel like we'll get to a good spot. So here we can see where, look, the thumbnail's actually not too bad, but here I've got the center. Here's where her weird hairstyle that goes around her horns is, and we can see that, right, like that's the center. If I construct out that horn there. Oh. It's interfering with that ear, which is okay. Yeah, if I construct out the position of where these horns start, make sure they're symmetrical, it's going to help me a lot. Boom. And this is where I'm going to try and refine what was a bunch of really simple marks. So I had a bunch of very simple painted marks that are kind of saying, hey, here's where a branch goes here. Here's where it goes there. Now what I'm doing is actually trying to add some form language to those. Because what we haven't had previously is good form language here. Now, you notice that, right, this is kind of where this ear is going. And if I can nudge it out here a little bit, right, if I can nudge it out there, that's going to give me a little bit more I don't know whether it's going to go there. Yeah, I think it's just going to get covered up. Let's see if we can add some extra branches here to add some complexity to it. And here we've got the hair. So again, thinking about where the hair overlaps. Hopefully I'll be able to remember where all of these things go. But so much of this is just a matter of thinking about overlap. Overlaps, overlaps, overlaps. Actually, let's do the other earrings. Don't. Go, bump, 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 bump. So yeah, trying to make these think / look like tree branches. We're going to have some leaves, both flying and right, a sort of part of this. And here we have the other hair sort of coming out. So we've got the shape of the hair. I'm going to try and make sure that we can create some good overlap for the hair. See if we can create some overlap. Oh, I don't think that's going to work actually. Let's try and keep it under control. So yeah, this torso is going to sort of fade out to a certain degree. See if we can pull this down. Right, we got this arm going over. Right. Collarbones. Again, anatomy not 100%. Okay, and again, let's see if we can just make sure we're wrapping form around. This will allow us to see, I think these are like a little bit lower here. But yeah, this will allow us to place those little sort of rings a little bit better. But again, I'm just thinking, where do we find truth here? Don't. So trying to mix anatomy with some good shapes. And again, here we have this sort of growth. So yeah, I think that's working okay. That kind of there. There. Erase a bit. You can't quite see what's happening to there. Where's the center line? Center line will give us some truth. Center line of the chest. getting there. So these are the things where, yeah, the construction, the form drawing, all of that stuff will make a big difference. I don't necessarily have to get it all perfect at this phase though. Boom. And this is going to be behind this, so we don't really need to pay that much attention to it. Again, I'll figure out what's happening with this. I have no idea what this kind of sword is or why it's important. It's not part of the story, but oh well. But yeah, I was kind of imagine it being like a very sort of ragged, broken kind of sword that has a bunch of kind of glowy magic coming off it. Again, pretty nonsensical. All right, so I think I think a lot of this is gonna turn out okay. And here we've got some of that kind of fur coat thing. It's going around here. Let's find the structure for it. Right, indicate the texture. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Cool. So again, I feel like this shoulder here, even though it's not that important, is actually at the foreground. So it better get it, at least, it better not look terrible. All right, I think we're there. And again, we got the cape. All right, so they're coming up here. And again, this kind of coming up here. So her cape is sort of starting to blend in, but I'm not doing this with gradients. I'm doing this with graphic shapes. So we've got to make sure that this kind of works here. Again, same with the hair. It's going to kind of blend in. All right. Cool. Yeah, I think that'll work. Again. All right. So that's the main character. I think that is the main thing that really needs to work. The rest of these things can be way rougher. Because again, we're not going for like, cover quality. This is just still like a sketch. And here I'm going to try and remember what are all the things that I thought I was going to do, because we were also going to have, again, this. Come out here, have some leaves. So I'm going to keep all the leaves and the big blocky things. Where they need to be. Because that was actually interesting. So even though this is going behind the text, and I'll probably not put heaps of effort into it, still going to make sure we put it in. And I think I also had, again, let's check that. This is why it's also good to have another one here. yeah, I think I also had some idea of like there being foregroundy shapes here. So this is like a little bit chaotic. Now behind here, we also had some trees. And this is where, in between those trees, and this is in the background, in between those trees we had some fire. So trying to build these rough shapes that I had into something. And again, there is like a fun degree to this whole thing whereby like you never really know whether this is going to work. Right, sort of adding stuff and doing it at this scale. It is a lot easier if you actually rough all these bits and pieces in properly, but I am not going to do that. And again, this is another thing down here where I can probably have this disappear into nothing because it's not going to help me to try and draw heaps of anatomy there. So the last thing I think here is just really trying to nail down this expression. Well, so this is where it's going to start. This is kind of where it's going to stop. The top lid is going to be pretty flat. Lid of the eye, that is. Here, this is going to come over. Right, boom. Wrap around there. This is going to come around that ear. And then we've got what we need. So yeah, worthwhile, you know, if it is important to the look, to nail down some of this expression. So in a similar way, we're probably just going to see a flat lip here. See if I can tweak this. These are things again that, you know, I can tweak in the final lines if I need. Right, I've got going to have some teeth in there that we're not going to draw. Right, I've got center coming up here. It's going to come down there. Then it's going to go in there. Boom. And I haven't really constructed this face shape. I'm just sort of winging it. Right, I'm just going to see how we go. Yeah, see how we go. So again, you can flip it. Right, we could flip this thing. See what we get. Again, try rotate, and again, this will just won't allow us to see if we've got any major mistakes here, which I think I feel like this eye patch could be up a little bit higher. Yeah, it's a bit better. Now, the rest of this stuff, flip it back, the rest of this stuff, I'm going to have to really think about because we don't have that much time. Probably been drawing this for about half an hour, 20 minutes now. We're almost an hour in, and yeah, I really want to kind of be done with this by about an hour in, like the drawing phase. So let's look at what this character is like. This will remind me of the basic proportions. Right, so I got this weird, and he's going to have lots of things coming out, lots of forest root power stuff, because he's getting attacked. Well, but he kind of has this like sort of almost emaciated look. Right, so like very sort of skinny, bony vibe, and the head is like way wider than his body. So yeah, just because I designed it doesn't mean I remember how it goes. Center, and then we kind of have these. Right, 1, 2, something like that. Yeah, well, people are often asking like, what do I? Can you buy the Ara comic, and you know, is any of that possible? It's not really possible. I have it. I have some of the French editions left. It did sort of go out of print because Ankama decided to sort of stop continuing to publish it. So I have some French copies, but yeah, I don't really have the facilities to get shipping happening in any really sort of major way. So yeah, I don't really know what to do with it. I'm thinking, maybe let me know in the comments what you reckon, but part of me just kind of wants to put it up, like just make a website for it and just put it up so anyone can kind of read it. I think that would probably be like the best thing to do. But yeah. And I'm not entirely sure what to do with the IP of it either. Like whether I make more comics. Again, it's been like quite a while since it's been like 10 years since I kind of dealt with all of the drama surrounding it. So I'm pretty much kind of separated from it. But yeah, I kind of, I'm not sure whether I should just do more stories. There was a lot more stories planned for it. But yeah, I'm not sure whether I should just do more stories or revamp it, or I was thinking of again doing like a similar thing, maybe with like a different character or modifying the character design a bit, working that into the story. But yeah, I think a lot of the big like projects I want to work on next are all science fiction, so it kind of took a bit of a different turn. I still haven't figured out what I'm going to do with all of the personal projects I have going on. And again, this is another sort of example of that. But it's good for me to revisit. Like this. Yeah, and a big part of the reason why I don't have you know, a lot of this sort of like personal IP, or, you know, the projects that I'm working on. I haven't done one of these for a long time, mostly because I just keep getting sort of new concept design work, and every time I get to a stage where I kind of feel like, all right, I've got it, I'm going to do this thing, then I get some sort of new project that's really exciting. So again, I've been able to do the Star Atlas comic recently, which is yeah, just sort of a cool opportunity. Get to draw sci-fi, which is something that I haven't done a lot of, and yeah, it's just these things where like you just sort of get sidetracked, and then had some cool plans to do it one day, but yeah, it just kind of never really pans out. So these are all going to be pretty small, and I'm going to focus on essentially the silhouettes that are created here. So even though I'm drawing a whole bunch of stuff there, I'm really thinking about like which silhouettes are going to be on what layer, what's going to be behind what, how do we manage it. And again, with this type of abstract work, again, we don't have to have all of the characters reacting to the same thing. So in this one, like this guy here, I kind of imagining that he is, or they are, yeah, just kind of standing there, sort of representing and showing off the character, which is often what happens with these. Sort of poster ideas. So again, let's put all this stuff on one layer. All right. This is probably going to be another layer. This is going to be a layer back there, and then behind it is going to be this. And this really, yeah, this, even though this is good, it needs to kind of come up here. Because we have this character, like the big, like sort of epic forest guardian guy. He's got the horns. Again, I probably had a plan for how the horns went, how they were supposed to look, but I'm just going to fully make it up as I go along. Probably not even going to do much work here. Right, and so you can see that's kind of going to go all over the shop. Now he has one hand here. Right, look at that hand. That's pro hand there. Right, and he's got his staff that's going down here. And he has one bit of his sort of cloak here. And then most of this under here is just going to disappear. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Got some spheres there. So yeah, this is like, yeah, this is one of those things where it's quickly becoming like, why did you agree to draw all this stupid stuff, Tim? Whose idea was this? It was mine. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's not going to take that long. Still not set on her face. Right. And again, little bits of red that will probably still be from here that I'll have to play with. So again, lots of little bits and pieces here that I feel like only I am really going to understand and be able to contextualize. Not sold on that face. But yeah, what you can do is just duplicate the lines until we've got something else. So I think that the main thing here is just like we're not going to see that much of, right, of that lip. So again, I really have to play with this, the exact positioning of it. Again, I'm not sure. Not sure her eye is going to be like that. I think the chin might also have been getting a little bit large. See if we can trim that down. So yeah, these are all things that we'll have to see how they play out when we do the final lines. But it is worth just fussing around, just making sure here. Oh. Let's try flipping. This is going to be attractive. So this is where, again, doing this type of like just using the black is not the best idea. Yeah, I think that's going to be better. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted. But that's going there. So I do feel like this chin needs to pop out a bit. So this is drawing it how you shouldn't draw it, which is just like redrawing. Like structure will help here, but also sometimes that's what you need. Just need to figure out what it actually looks like on the surface. So I think this ear needs to come forward or make it clear that it is being connected to the face a little bit more down here. And I think I need to get rid of some of that jaw. So again, not the most orderly sort of drawing, but I think we're sort of starting to get there, and might just have to wait and see how it goes when we do the finished lines, which should be pretty soon. But yeah, there's a lot of sort of challenges with this particular character design, and this is often why I kind of end up sort of wanting to redesign things, just in terms of yeah, like exactly where particular bits of hair and things meet. Can be a little bit challenging to figure it out. All right, but yeah, let's leave it there, and we'll see how we go at the next phase. All right, so let's do the lines. Now, I played around with the face a tiny bit. I was kind of not necessarily sure whether I was made it better or worse, but again, this is kind of, I guess, the work we've done in the last half an hour or 40 minutes on this. In terms of what we do next, what I'm going to do is exactly the same step as last time. Except now I can really barely see the color underneath, but still a little bit. It's going to help me to understand what's going on. Now, there's a number of things here that I think are worth sort of considering. Let's put that there so we can kind of see the text. The first thing is like what goes where. Let's go. There we go. That's what I've got. Cool. So again, this might be a little bit, yeah, a little bit small. Let's res this down. I don't think we need to be quite at this size. Yeah, so we got to figure out what goes in front of what, and there'll be quite a bit of redrawing some of these things. We're not going to go for a super clean look with all of these bits and pieces. Some of it will be sketchy, and that will kind of help our cause. I am going to start with the foreground element here of this sword. Right, and oh, there we go. All right. So yeah, pretty simple, just lines here. And yeah, intimating that we do have some kind of magic coming off it. Boom. Again, giving it some texture, just sort of playing around. But yeah, mostly just a graphic element, right? That's kind of the idea here. So again, it is pretty useful to label these layers. So the next one I'm going to do is just the main character, right? And I'm going to start from the face, because I think that is a very sensible thing to do. Because no matter what we do from a structural point of view, it's always hard to really get it like just right. But if we kind of start from the center and build out, it's a lot easier to make sure that we sort of stay symmetrical. And then also a lot easier to build the structure here around it. Now again, there's a million different ways that I could play around with. Exactly how we do all this. But a good trick is to have like a layer in between that I can use to turn on and off. So the style that I'm typically working in is, yes, it's a clean line style. Like, yes, it's mimicking an ink stage, but I am always just working with what the medium does, right? And often what the medium will do is allow me to feather some lines a little bit, right? I can add some texture. You can see, right? And that can often allow me to just add a little bit more subtlety. Just going to make this nose a little bit. All right, and again, just thinking about feathering some of this. Now, I think what I do is, again, I could draw this here, but I don't know whether I need to. Like, it might actually be better to put that in with color. I'll see. Again, millions of ways to do this. So I'm drawing the top of this kind of eye patch coming out here. And then, again, we're going to kind of render it like this. And this gives us a bit of an indication of it having dimensionality. Now, this will come over here. I think actually this needs to be a bit more like that. And again, this eyebrow. Again, arcing up here. All right, and this eye. So much of this, the character here, and exactly kind of what we're going to feel is going to be to do with the very subtle ways that I'm like sort of rendering these different features. So like, yes, it is possible to, think about structure, but a lot of what will actually affect the feeling of the character, right, which to me is going to define the success, is, how much emotion there is in these sort of little lines. This is where, again, one of the things I notice a lot is, mangaka, like Japanese manga artists, they spend so much time on the precise subtleties of the eyes, right? And I think it makes a big difference, right? There's like lots and lots of effort that goes on there. So here, let's see if we can that bit. Let's keep that. Because I think one of the other things is that, I mean, a big part of the design that I'm always chasing is this feeling that she has like a bit of a, like the chin is not very prominent. And that gives it a very particular look. All right. We'll just see how we go. So again, there's bits that are important, and then there's bits that are not. I think we're soon going to get to some of the bits that are way, way, way less important. But again, we can always sort of check, right? See what's going on. And this is where I'll get a much better feeling for like what is actually creating the feelings that I'm not liking, right? What is doing it? Maybe I will need to put that in. Maybe that is going to be an important aspect of the character's sort of vibe. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that does help a little bit. All right. So we're fast approaching things that don't matter that much. And this is where we can try and gain a little bit of speed. So where's that? Yeah, no, that's going there. Don't. Now again, if this was like, you know, the cover for the entire book or something like that, then I might pay this stuff a little bit more attention. But yeah, honestly, what I find is that yeah, it's not going to make much difference. The fact that things are there, the fact that we have a particular sort of object in a particular spot is going to make a huge difference. It changes the composition, and that's about it. So again, here can add a bit of textural information. I feel like that should come in there, go there. Right. Again, we've got the idea that we've got our eye patch kind of hooking into this. But yeah, as I said, at some point, it's got to move quickly. Otherwise, you'll be here forever. And also good to do a pass on this without looking at all of the underlying stuff. But what I'll do is I'll leave that for later. Leave that for last. And I think the other thing we can do is like maybe texture here. Got this hair. All right, this is hair. This is hair, I think. Boom, boom, boom. What do we got? Don't. So yeah, this stuff is pretty like tedious, although for me it's kind of, you know, I view it as pretty brainless, sort of easy work. But it does make a big difference to the overall sort of look, right? So a big part of the effort is in putting it in, figuring out where it goes, roughly figuring out the shape language, and then just kind of doing just doing enough to make it kind of be there. And what we're hoping is that the composition that we have going is going to be enough to actually make a difference. And this is where, again, you do have to have confidence in the fundamental principles and the process. So, you know, the first few times you go through this, like if I was kind of here, I'd be like, what am I doing? Is this going to make any difference? I'm drawing a whole bunch of silly tree things up here. And yeah, I mean, again, still hard to say, right, whether it's going to make any difference. But yeah, my experience is that, yeah, this will kind of all come together. And this is where having a reliable process is so important. It's so important to have a process you can rely on that's simple, effective, because that's what allows you to get through these points where, again, I'm kind of looking at it and I'm like, I don't know, it looks rubbish. I'm not happy. This is not working. This is going to be awful, right? This is not what I wanted. It's not gonna happen. Yeah, having a process where you can just trust it and be like, look, okay, I have that. Where's that thumbnail thingy? Yeah, I got this. Like, I have a feeling it's going to work on the big screen, right? On the big scale, which, you know, also means on the small scale, right? In the bigger picture, right? It's going to work at a small size. Yeah, again, that's not making any sense, but hopefully you know what I mean, right? Because I've got it figured out at a thumbnail stage. Overall, the image is going to work out, so I know that's going to work, or at least that's I have to trust the thumbnail. The next thing is like, how do I turn all this high frequency detail and stuff here that we kind of had into something interesting? And that's where, again, what I'm doing is trusting. Oh, here I got my weed ear that you can barely see. I'm trusting the process, the instincts, and the compositional ideas that I'm using. And that's that what I'm doing is creating a lot of overlapping shape. And, you know, these things are not necessarily going to need to be, you know, epic or that well drawn. I just need to have confidence that overall there's going to be enough here for it to feel like, oh, there's complexity, and oh, we're looking over here, oh, we're not looking over there. So again, like, you know, I'm often saying that, you know, good artists, and insofar as I've had success being a good artist, it's because I'm good at hiding what I'm not good at and showing what I am good at. And this is a great example, I think, of that. I'm going to try and create the feeling of a lot of complexity without actually having a lot of complexity. So I've got my ear here. And yeah, I just feel like she needs a different hairstyle. Okay, I really want to just try and see how much I can redesign the character overall. hair here. Right, a bit of an Art Nouveau aesthetic to the hair. It's kind of the only way I know how to draw hair. And we're kind of blending off into the sort of, I don't know what you would call this, but it's kind of like lost edges. I'm trying to lose these edges with shape. So this is the back here we can see. Not sure how we're going to handle that. Oh yeah, I think this will work. I don't know how work the actual rendering of that, but so here we've got the fur collar thingy. Here we can see that's the neck, right? Got this thing coming down here, and then go boom. Boom. All right. All right. I feel like that's working better. So you can see I'm doing a lot of stuff like making up the way that the structure of these little bits and pieces works on the fly. This is because I have drawn these things a million times, or at least that's what it feels like. So this idea of constructing this exact thing, I've done this hundreds of times because it's a major part of her costume. I think this is where often, you see people get like super proficient at drawing particular costumes, different superhero costumes. I mean, once you draw stuff that many times, right, it's so easy for some of it to become second nature and not really fit into your normal life. Why are you doing it that way? Or, like, didn't you need to construct this? Yeah, it just kind of happens, right? All right. Let's finish this off while I was in that frame of mind. So, no, I am not, and we are not drawing behind. Right? What we get is what we get. So I'm not drawing anything behind this elements in the foreground, right? Even though I'm going to put all this stuff on layers, I can't be bothered, and it is not worth it to worry about. Yeah, drawing stuff that we're not going to see, obviously. But it can be a good practice to get into the rhythm of doing that, because it's often, clients often really like that kind of thing, because then they can animate it or move it around, or if you need to tweak something, it is good to have it all there. Right. Boom. That's behind there. Do we see any of this? Not really. And this is where, again, like before, I didn't really have the fidelity to draw some of these other bits and pieces. Right, like to get the exact line there, I didn't have the fidelity with the previous pen to do that. Now we do. And that's all good. Putting in a few shadows here and there. All right. Now, again, I mean, one other thing we could think about is like, yeah, I mean, maybe it would be good to put stuff behind there, right? Because that way, if I did want to make it transparent, I could. But I think what I would want is just a very, right, like a very simple indication of what was there. Right, so it would be something like that. Like not the full thing, but yeah, maybe we will play around with that. Bump, bump. Because again, I can just cover it up if I want. Oh. All right, what do we got here? I don't know. I don't know. That's going to go around there, maybe. This is the cape coming back here. But then again, right, it's going to sort of turn into weird warped space. Got the deltoid there. So this will look weird. Hopefully it kind of turns out well. Hopefully. And here we got the same thing. So again, this stuff doesn't necessarily make sense. I don't know whether it needs to. I'm going to leave it like that. So what are we, probably about an hour and a half in. But like we've got a lot of stuff done. And because I've got that color plan. Oh, here's where I totally forgot to put in her iconic. So let's remember how they go. This is another one of these costume design thingies that's a nightmare. All right, so we got like one. Oh, let's erase that. Got one that's going to come just here. So there's a couple of ways you could do this, right? A tricky way would be like, let's make a new layer, which I've got as a shortcut. So now I got a new layer. Now what I'm going to do is draw these armbands here. Again, not necessarily doing the best job of it. There we go. It's a bit better. I kind of couldn't really see this before, so I was sort of drawing it blind. Again, good example of the biomechanics of me and the Cintiq and stuff not really being synced up. And then we've got another one here. All right, so now I've got that. Now let's do this one. Again, similar thing. That's going to go there. Clean that up. Boom. Are they roughly the same size? Yeah, I mean, that looks right. Other one, boom. There we go. Again, not the best. Not the worst. As long as it's there, it'll be okay. Alright, so now I'm going to erase out all those little bits. Let's erase out those. And what I'm going to do is probably actually here and there, I can actually erase out a few other little bits. And we'll try and add some sense that these are kind of, right, like digging into the skin a bit. Might not be necessary to sell the idea, but I think it does help a little bit. Right, now we got a few lines here. Let's just merge. Right, and there we are. Sorry, oh, I should have deleted that. But again, I mean, you can just do it with an eraser here, touch it up. And that's exactly what people do when they're, you know, doing real ink drawings and stuff, right? Use whiteout, all sorts of other nonsense. I think I've said this a million times on the channel, but I feel like it bears repeating that, you know, when I started out, I felt like, because I'd see all of the comic books with perfect line work, but obviously they're sort of reproductions, right? And I sort of never, because like, you know, everyone was always like, oh yeah, inking is so important and, you know, you need to be really good at inking. I just kind of imagined that people didn't make any mistakes ever. I mean, I couldn't imagine anything more stressful as an artist than to try and ink someone else's pencils and not to be able to make any mistakes. I mean, just the idea of it kind of shocks me, which is maybe one of the reasons why I never really got into inking with pen. Yeah. But yeah, no, they use whiteout and all sorts of stuff, right? And there's can be total chaos. There's also there's actually like a really good Man Ben episode with the Man Ben documentary by Naoki Urasawa, that manga artist behind Monster and a bunch of other really good manga. He goes around and interviews other manga artists. It's one of the best things that has ever been created in the history of mankind, is that documentary. But yeah, I think there is one episode where there's like a real sort of rock and roll-esque manga artist. And yeah, it's just like the way he just starts drawing is crazy. And he just kind of like didn't do any planning. He just sort of jumps in, and then like the whole page is just a mess of whiteout and chaos. And yeah, but very befitting the style of the thing, right? It's sort of like the most interesting to see how those bits and pieces are made. Because yeah, I mean, it worked, right? But it was definitely, yeah, not how you should do it. And I think that's, I always say this, and I've made quite a few videos on, you know, should you learn to draw properly, you know, if you're trying to draw manga or anything like that. I think it's so important to just look at what people actually do. Yeah, and I think one of the most interesting things about watching that the Urasawa documentaries is that you just see the variety that the Japanese artists have, and they don't seem to have that kind of attachment to, like, here is the right way to draw. It's kind of more like, it seems to me at least, like you figure it out yourself, right? Like that's kind of what is going to make you good, is you sort of figuring it out yourself and playing around. And that there's sort of, you know, everyone sort of it's like you draw your manga, that's it. Like that's the proof. You an artist, it's like, well, if you're drawing manga, for sure, right? Because that is one of the hardest things to do on the planet, is to keep a proper sort of manga publishing schedule. So it's like, well, Yep, the truth is self-evident. You are an artist, you're putting in the work. And yeah, however you do it doesn't matter. It's just interesting. Like, it's weird and crazy. And part of the other thing, if you sort of listen to a lot of the subtext, is that, a lot of those, like what he's doing, what Urshauer is doing is not necessarily done, right? The idea of sort of sharing that process and opening the door of the studio is not something that, happens all the time. And I think probably, yeah, part of the reason is like maybe that's a good thing, right? Everyone's just doing it their own way. You see the final result. There is a magic to that, right? And you don't really know how it's done. Anyway, just worth thinking about. And this is exactly the kind of nonsense that goes through my head as I'm trying to do a million silly branches and leaves and stuff, right? It's like, it doesn't matter, right? You could literally be, doing anything right now, and it would not affect the quality of this, really. Just a puzzle, trying to make some interesting shapes. Right, these little silhouette pops here will make a big difference, right? As will, oh, there we go. Again, just a little bit more overlap. Boom. So again, just adding complexity. Does not have to be good. Just has to be complexity. Again, thinking about maybe there's a feeling of this infecting her. All right. Boom, boom, boom. So I'm going to sort of purposefully keep this little bit here sort of vague, right? Like, I do not want this to be that interesting. We want it to kind of fade out. So while I might put a bit of stuff here, I'm going to leave that other bit completely vague on purpose. All right, boom, boom. Do I need some stuff there? I don't know. Is it going to help me? I don't know. Might try and just be a little bit simpler with that. Same thing here. Try and be abstract with it. Adding some sense of striation, right? Because we want to feel like, yeah, she's really gripping that sword. Bump, 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 bump. But you don't want to make it feel as if there's too much form there. Because the question is like, well, why is there form there but nowhere else? Anyway, I am totally procrastinating. Let's get rid of this. And what I'm going to do is, yeah, I'm still going to draw some stuff behind here. But what you'll notice is it was like pretty vague to begin with. Behind the text. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep it vague. Now this is all looking kind of brutally non-committal. But I think it'll come together, right? So I can actually see the text because I had it there. So I can actually, add some little shapes that might assist us a bit. Well, yeah, I think that's all just going to sort of disappear into nothing right behind the text because I'm going to want it to kind of fade out. So yeah, let's see. Again, might be useful to put a bit of stuff in there just in case I do want to change the text if the text changes size or something like that. Right, could be worth adding a bit of complexity, but yeah, not too much. And you can see I'm not trying to go for heaps of form. This is just quick. So it's all a matter of like, what can we do quickly to help us get a decent result? And yeah, this seems like a lot, but it's often this sort of complexity, I think, that will make or break it. Like this, not what I'm doing here, but boom. There we go. So yeah, zoom out a bit. Starting to get there. So what can we do? Again, I've kind of done that bit. This is, the bit that's the most important, I think. It is a little bit chaotic because, again, I feel like once we add the text, the composition makes sense. This is so important. This is very much relevant to comics, but with comic books, it shouldn't look right until you have the text there. That's my sort of opinion. That's my sort of approach. Same with the balloons. It shouldn't look good without any balloons in it because the balloons are a major part of the composition. So to me, when I turn the text on, I can be like, okay, this makes sense. When I take text off, there's a void there, right? There's a void that shouldn't be there, so the composition will not look good. And this is exactly how I design, all of the text and all of these bits and pieces when I'm, doing covers and things like that. All right, so here, going to just add some quick suggestion here. Okay, this is also fading off into nothing. So just being pretty vague there with that. What's happening? Yeah, cool. All right, so that's kind of the foreground done. Let's have a bit more here again, just so we can kind of see it. Boom. All right, now let's draw all this. Just going to call this background 1. And this one is going to have, I'll create the other ones. Background 2. And background 3. Oh, nope. Background 3. So that's basically going to be like this guy, and this stuff is background 1. Yeah, this stuff, background 1. Then I've got 2, 3, 4. So I actually need 4. Now, this may seem like a lot, but this is what will make my life a million times easier. And we'll sort of see this happen again only once we color it. And this is why the line and color style, like the reason I have a whole channel kind of dedicated to this style is that it is very specific to the process that you're using, right? The specific thing that you're doing. The way that you go about finding success is often specific to that particular process. With the line and color style, the important thing to remember is that you have nothing until you kind of put the color in, right? It sort of, again, it needs the color in order to work. And you need to mostly adjust your expectation. That's all. So you got to know, like, at which point in the process is the ugly point in the process. When does it get good? When does it? When do I need to pay attention? Because there are a lot of these phases where, yeah, look, it's just going to look a little bit ugly. There's nothing you can do about it. Just kind of doesn't look good. And again, this is one of those things, like seeing the overlaps, understanding whether or not that's gonna look good. Very, very challenging. So I haven't ever drawn these characters like this in this style, I don't think, because I painted a lot of them. So it'd be interesting to see how this works. So let's see if I can put some weird bad squiggly hands. Oh. Yeah, what did I have some system or something? I kind of feel like some of these bits were like pretty vague. Oh yeah, I think I did kind of have some way that I sort of made their muscles kind of link with the way that human muscles kind of worked. It's weird how this comes back to me. It's like literally have not done this for a long time. So this is just like a normal warrior, one of these guys. Not this sort of grand character. Oh, oh. So again, probably would have been good to have even more layers, right? This stuff on the foreground here could easily have been right on its own layer. But yeah, I think we'll be okay. Again, still the idea of there being this kind of wind that's going this way, sort of linking all these scenes together. It's a major motif in the whole comic, really. It's like lots of this wind. But I think it'll be a lot of this overlap that really makes this work, right? It'll sort of help these scenes blend together. That's my hope anyway. Just make sure we're on the right layer. So often with this, again, the real problem is kind of get started and then realize totally the wrong layer. Don't. All right. Okay. Just thinking about how to add a little bit of texture here. All right. I think that's going to be it, Tim. I think you're doing enough. Boom. Let's save. Keep saving. So this kind of sets the, like the frontline level of detail, which is sort of not much. It's very clear that this guy is meant to be sort of in the background. And here we've got background 2. And this bit is going to be all of these sort of characters that are more or less just going to be silhouettes. Boom. Holding these spears. So these are going to be, again, this whole thing is just going to be shapes against the thing that is behind them. Don't. Here we go. And yeah. Actually, let's do this first. What? Well, so yeah, super need to focus, make sure I get all of this right. Let's see if we can put some behind here. That might help. Now this is something weird, but I'm just going to draw, right? I'm sort of just going to draw these shapes behind, because that will make it a lot easier. Make sure we're on the right layer. Yeah. Again, this will make sense when we come to color. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom. And again, we'll have some silhouettes of these characters. These little forest characters going there. Boom. So again, don't really even need to 100% know what they are. But this is where, again, narrative storytelling comes in really handy, like understanding what we're doing. We have a very iconic shape. So the character here is very iconic. We got this hole in their head, and we can really see, the shape that's working there. I.e., this is iconic. And then when I have the same shape over here, it's clear what's going on. This is so important for clarity. It's why we spend ages having interesting designs and, spending all our effort trying to get them working, is because when you have an iconic design, it makes it a lot easier to do these things, to make sure that we've got replication from one bit to another. Now again, with that said, I have no idea whether this will work or not. because it's going to be super rough. But anyway, let's see. The thing that will hopefully hold it together is, as I said, these iconic shapes. Because we don't want any of this to really be in focus. All right, so that's background. That's that one. Now I think background 3 is where we're going to have a lot of this stuff as well. All right. Okay, let's put this guy in there. Bump, 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 bump. And again, he's got the same tree magic that is infecting him. And as I've said before, the thing I'm going to focus on is the silhouette. That's what's going to make the difference. So making sure this silhouette works. Right, we can see it coming up here. And what I'm going to do is, again, a little bit weird and might look a little bit weird, but this is going to make it a million times easier for me to do the flats because it's all one shape. Boom, boom, boom. Again, this here. So these things are going to come up and sort of overlap this guy. Let's make that one a little bit better. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Cool. All right, let's get the silhouette here. Silhouette here, boom. Pectorals. Right. Sorry, going into the full-on the zone, the non-verbal zone of doom for being a YouTuber slash streamer. Another thing people often ask is like, should I do streams? Again, one of the reasons I don't do any streaming or live stuff is just mostly it has been because my internet is terrible and I have not been able to do that. I have better internet now, but I don't know. I mean, let me know in the comments, but I really feel like it's kind of a waste of time for everyone. I feel like everyone ends up just sort of talking and not drawing enough art, right? What I like to do is show that you can do stuff in a reasonable amount of time, and a big part of that is being effective, being efficient, doing good productivity stuff. And I feel like streaming is the worst productivity because you're not really able to pay attention. You can't stop it. You can't, I mean, you can, but the whole point is that it's kind of live. So anyway, basically, I'm probably just old. I don't get it. Seems like a waste of time to me, but let me know. I mean, it's definitely would be pretty easy to do that. But yeah. Yeah, basically, I think I would get less drawing done, and I would not be demonstrating how to, create art in a more efficient way. It's kind of against my ethos. And I like time shifting it in general. I have too many other deadlines that are strict. So again, this is not a good hand. But it will do. And again, another part of the whole sort of character thing here that I was kind of forgetting. I should have put that in. It'd be a lot easier to put that in. Is that, yeah, this guy kind of has all these little ropes and things that are tying him down. All right, here we go. And here is the leg. Again, super rough. And we will see shortly whether or not, again, what I'm saying is true, right? Whether or not it does all just come out in the wash, whether it's going to look fine, whether we need this or not. Always good also to just sort of check, like, okay, what am I drawing? Okay, I've got this, I've got all this stuff. But yeah, boom. Okay. So this sort of goes behind here. I'm still not keen on this face. Still not keen on this face, guys. It's not working. I feel like it's just like this. All right, like this needs to come over. Just doesn't feel like the character. But again, we'll see. All right, so I got, where am I? I need to go background tree. Turn that on. All right, so what do we got here? Background 3 is going to be some color here. That's a bunch of trees. We're going to come over and then we're going to have trees here. Boom. 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 Boom, boom, boom. And I think what I'll do is have some other trees on the layer behind. That'll kind of help. Again, these are just going to be super rough. But I am paying attention very carefully to where these overlap the things in front. Oh. All right. Again, thinking about pattern. Okay. Other thing we need to do is above, maybe, oh, yeah, maybe. Here we go. So I did have this as an idea. Let's take this off. I did have this as an idea. going to have some branches come over here. So these are in the foreground. And the goal here is to help with depth. So you can see as we progress, it becomes easier to, sort of add these things in. All right, we get more used to it. And I need to up my leave game as well. I always say this. Got like the most basic kind of leaf shapes here that are really not good enough to be quite honest, right? All right. So again, nothing special, just a branch or two in the foreground. All right, let's do this last background, and then I'm going to put some leaves over the top of everything else. So again, this is one where I'm just going to like going to go crazy. These are in the far background. They don't need as much detail. And again here, some explosions. Just to keep a bit of that drama there. And again, as I said way back in the thumbnail, I think we need like a little bit of something there. Now, again, it should be really obvious at this point that there's no way I'm going to be able to make those types of decisions if I am at this stage, right? At this stage, I'm sitting here thinking about lines and bits and pieces and, all this kind of hyper weird detail, right? The things that I'm going to obsess over are like, oh, is the face good, right? Probably whether or not the face is good is not really that important. But adding little bits and pieces here, adding a bit of space for me to go and add then again, we'll be able to add like a little bit of color here and there. That is actually, I think, going to make a difference. Again, make sure we're on the right layer. Yes, we are. Really annoying if we get these on the wrong layer. All right. So that's kind of, right, well, it is what it is, right? I don't know whether it's working yet. And then we got this guy here. So let's do this face. Let's just draw that behind. That'll make my life easier. Boom. Same with this. Let's just draw it behind. And it's going to function primarily as a shape because that's really all it's going to be able to do back here. And yeah, I did have a fair bit of this kind of stuff, kind of moss and vines and things hanging between. Well, again, we've got some of these leaves here. This is blending in with this. And to a certain degree, if I can make these blend in, that will be good. So again, this is all very, very vague. As I keep saying, that's kind of fine. And you can see that like this from a visual language point of view is kind of blending in with this, and that's exactly what I wanted. I want these things to blend together. All right, so here I've got this. Oh, come on, let's draw that as a circle. Got this guy. Don't. All right, so not sure how. That's looking a bit messy. Oh. Oh. Yeah, cool. Got this down here. Again, super rough. And I think this fire is going to be on the same layer. All right, getting there. So this should probably be on this layer. These things are in front. That's behind. And again, that can kind of fade into nothing. Right, we've got this going over here, and this stuff here is really just also going to fade into nothing because we're going to want to focus on the stuff that's behind, that's in front of it. So again, what I'm after is the termination of the silhouette, which is kind of here. All right, and again, we kind of have it terminating like there, which I think works. And we've got some other bits and pieces. Again, this is all super rough. We'd probably plan all of these if we were actually, you know, trying to make like a, you know, proper epic big cover. All right. Bad tangents there. There we go. That will work. Yeah. Well, so again, mix of like clean line, not clean line. But I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much done in terms of the lines. So yeah, what we do is check. And then the next phase is to add some color and see whether any of this worked. All right, so yeah, the color is my favorite bit. Although I just realized we need to, right, we missed a little bit here. So that's why it's always useful to, again, just check things at this scale. I need to go down there. Check things, still a bit thick. So again, I feel like I kind of keep wanting to, you know, play around with adding some stuff, just structure, etc. to the lines. This is where having these, again, what we can do is I'll just save that. I'll put it down there just in case I mess it up. But yeah, having like a little bit of extra time and just going through, now that I've got it all blocked out, right? I've drawn all the things, I've traced all the stuff, right, that I'm going to trace. Now I can go through, and where we've got focal areas, right, I can just go through, right, we can plus it. We can add a little bit of stuff, move it a little bit further than just that sort of simple, clean line look. I think also, where did we have? Yeah, I think I need a, I think that, firstly that goes there. Right. Secondly here, new layer. Let's start thing here. Boom. And let's put that earring in. All right. Don't. And then we got stuff behind it. Let's erase. Super simple process. All right. Merge. Just got to be super careful with these layers. We're not doing the wrong thing. But yeah, this is where I feel like that little bit of the lip can just come forward. Right? You can really play around with it. Right? Just plussing these lines a little bit. Like actually going to want. Again, thinking about texture, right? Dimensionality, right? Does this go through? Right, can we add a little bit? Can we just make it look a little bit less like a coloring book? So same thing here, right? Just to add a little bit of this, add a little bit of texture here. This is in the focal area. This is what we want to do, right? Like push our focal area things. Get these silhouettes done, right? Push some shadows here and there. Now, this is completely optional, right? This is not going to make much difference to the overall sort of effort, right? It's not gonna change the world, but often, you know, it's these little things that will make a difference if you need to plus it, right? And again, I've got this stuff. I know what's going to be there. Okay, just go through and see what can be done. Again, texture, focus, context, micro detail, micro composition, and also, you know, joining little bits and pieces up, right? You know, this can often be make a big difference to, you know, making things easier. But yeah, now that I've got the silhouettes here, yeah, we can go through, we can plus this a little bit. Sometimes, you know, this is just going to be a waste of time, but sometimes what this will do is make the coloring a little bit easier, because we kind of really, we have, you know, a little bit more detail there. So it makes it feel like, that coloring's done, right? Again, don't know how much of this is necessary. But I feel like sometimes, again, if we've got like this huge face there, it's worth putting a little bit of extra effort if we can. Just plus that line of the jaw, make it really separate. And again, we could add, right, some of those muscle striations and things we kind of talked about as well. But again, I don't normally do this. It's just when you have a giant face or something like that, right? Like exactly like this situation. Yeah, you know, I very rarely do this, right? I'm often, the faces are often a little bit smaller on the work that I'm doing. Right? But when they're bigger, right, just plus it, add a little bit of extra stuff. Same thing here. Can we add a little bit of texture? Right, I don't want this to be completely the focus, but again, might be good to just go through. Add a little bit. All right. Anyway, you could probably, you know, spend a large amount of time noodling this, right? It's probably not going to make much difference, but you never know. It's always a matter of saying, like, you know, and having an instinct for what is going to make a difference, right? That's ultimately the vast majority of the task at hand is like, what is actually going to make a difference? And what is me just kind of noodling? So again, you know, probably spent an extra few minutes, probably, yeah, look, I think 9 minutes, 10 minutes sort of doing that. And I think that's made it look a lot better for me anyway, for my money. But yeah, let me know what you think. Some of this stuff, I really do think like this, right? Could we add a few things here, right? Could we do the same kind of thing, right? Boom. Don't. Again, is this going to make a difference? I don't know. And let's look at the background too, which is this thing. I think that's a bit of a write-off, to be honest. Let's focus on the characters, right? Again. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. I think that's working a bit better. Again, not sure what I'm going to do with this sort of marking. It's got the same thing. This kind of design is very much of its time. Also kind of like circles and other things like that. But yeah, let's play around here, right? Let's see if we can add an extra little bit of drama to this. Let's, if in doubt, black it out. Black out the hand, right? It's not helping. But yeah, maybe I could create a bit more. Bit more something. And the idea is this guy's meant to be sort of made of stone. So good idea to make him look like that. I mean, I think that's, again, it's sort of, that's like 2 minutes gone. Like, does it make it look better? Yes. Okay. Well, that's probably good. Again, same thing here. Right. Can I plus this? Can we add a little bit of texture? Can I make it make more sense? Like, where does this start and where does this stop? Again, it's probably good to, you know, sort of make sure, like, just at this focal area here where we actually see this guy, that, you know, we do have a little bit more detail. Boom. Boom, boom. Yeah, that might be a bit much. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see if we can add some stuff here. All right. Anyway, I think I'm way out of time on this. But yeah, I never really liked this bit, so let's just get rid of it. Put another sphere-y thing there. All right, stop fiddling. Let's get on to the color. So the color is often my favorite bit. And yeah, so all we got to do is, first step, add some flats. What I normally do for the flats is, let's just group all that. Let's hide that. What else have I got here? That's probably, I've got this text. Let's see if I can hide that stuff. Yeah, like these are things that I don't really need yet. Yeah, all right. So I'm just going to use the normal process that I use. Go in quick mask. Yep, that's working. I'm just going to action all this. I do apologize. I have not made a proper tutorial for doing this yet. Yeah, it's something I'm still working on trying to, again, sort it out, make it easy to understand. It's a little bit tricky. Yeah, so there I've got the selections. See, I've missed some. On the right layer. Let's run that action. It's going to give me my flats. So I'll also look into some, other ways of doing this, right? Oh, so here am I getting the right selection here? Boom, boom. Gotta get all of the spaces, and it's again, machine is clogging up for some reason. I think a lot of the lag here is probably because I still have not gotten rid of all of the Windows ink sort of nonsense that normally is on these machines. Unless you actually kind of go through and delete it all, do all the registry hacks. There are frequently elements of like the way the Wacom interacts with Windows 11 and 10, basically all of them. And it means you kind of have that lag as you click. I think I'm getting that. I thought I installed all the stuff and hacked it, but again, just as like FYI, so the machine I use here that I'm sort of looking on, that you normally see me in front of when I'm recording videos, is sort of my secondary workstation, and this one is not quite as powerful as the one behind me. And I use this one just for recording and as a backup. And I started doing that a while ago, just because it became terrifying that, if one computer crashed or something went wrong, I'd probably be out of work for ages, because it just takes ages to set up a new workstation and get it working. Just takes days. So I kind of realized I was like, at the very least, even if I like just went down to the computer store, bought a new computer, even if I didn't build it, there would still be a lot of me fussing around installing everything. So having a second workstation that's all set up, I can just hop over here, do work on this is always useful. And what I have done in the past is also, when I have multiple jobs going, I set them up on different computers, right? So if I have an extra like freelance job, I just put it up here, and that means it's all set up. I'm not sort of swapping between things. I find that actually it seems excessive, but I found it pays for itself pretty quickly. All right. So basically what it means is I don't use this actual machine that much. There's always little foibles to it where I haven't ironed it out. So I'm often sort of complaining about stuff. All right, got this guy as well. Clicking all the gaps. There are, with trees, you end up making a million gaps. Do we have a good, yeah, it looks like we've got a good selection. Get all the holes in the tree. Do we have it? I think we do now. Bump. Yeah, I think that's probably what I had in mind. All right, we're getting close. All right, just get rid of that. Delete that. So the trick here is that it's part of the trick of this particular process that, again, I need to make a proper tutorial on for the channel, is that it actually collects the precise outline of the lines as well. So the selection is not just it's not just like flats inside. That what I'm actually doing is capturing the lines themselves to the pixel level, and that is very important because they're not, you know, that there is a feather there. So yeah, the way I'm doing that's quite specific, and it does give a few little opportunities. But again, that's why the tutorial was like a little bit sort of longer. It's a rabbit hole of different technical bits and pieces. All right, here we go. Here, I can probably just, yeah, do this. So this is where we can see here I have bits and pieces that are completely discombobulated, but just connect them all up. And this is why, again, you see me often connecting bits up, even though they're behind other layers, because it makes this stage a lot easier. All right, got that one. Boom, boom. I got this one. All right, many gaps. Did we get it? I think that's pretty much it. So one of the better, like, easier things to do if you are at this stage and you want to know like what's behind what is, yeah, collect the layers above, turn them on, and nothing I'm going to do is going to be affected by these layers from now on. They're just there, but it does give me a good indication of where I want to put and connect up the dots here. All right, cool. Where am I missing? Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, so this is where being lazy with this drawing can take a lot of extra time. This is why I'm often saying it saves time to connect all the dots. Don't. Let's try that. Yeah, boom, boom. There we go. Gaps here. Boom. Yeah, that little hole there. That looks cool. That'll be a good little silhouette. Does that work? We will see. Boom. All right. Now, in order to make these selections, though, we need to turn these ones off. And now we got this last one. All right. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. all the gaps. All right. Again, let's turn these on. Then we can see what we're dealing with. Boom, cool. All right. Oh yeah, we got the sword, remember? So just doing it bit by bit. So even doing this is like relatively time consuming. Find all the gaps. Boom, there we go. Well, close that, close that. Oh, close that. There we go. Close that. Oh. There we go. Boom. 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 Alright, there's probably a bunch of holes in there. And you can see those holes do often sort of crop up later in the selection process. Alright, almost there, guys. We're almost there. Oh, that should work. Boom. Right, so again, instead of that taking me like 5 minutes, it took me 0 minutes. I think that's it. What am I missing? Some extra holes here and there that oh look, there's plenty of holes there. It looks messy. Oh, that looks messy when you zoom up. Often again, like when you zoom up, you're like, oh yeah, that's a mess. All right, I think we're done. Let's punch it. Boom. All right, let's put our text back. There we go. All right. Will this work? I'm feeling positive about it. Now, the good thing about this stage is that I pretty much know exactly what I need to do now, right? It's like all I need to do is just put in the colors from the thumbnail, put them here, and everything will look almost exactly the same, which is, again, a really, really good part of this particular type of process. All right, so color. We are at the 3-hour mark now, which is, again, taking a bit longer than I wanted, but I'm pretty confident we'll be able to, quote unquote, smash this out soon, because the beauty of the line and color process is it really just relies on that initial sort of design, and then everything else is kind of downhill. So what I'm doing here is I've got my thumbnail, right? This is what we had that's kind of working, and just going to go and add in all the bits and pieces here. I'm going to start a little bit lighter. Again, we're just flatting. So her costume is kind of this bluey color. It's going to go out to here. Boom. Now we can there we go. Fill that. Oh. There we go. Fill that. Fill that. And then we've got the hair. which we can kind of do like this, overlaid. Oh, not quite. There we go. Got like that. Now, because it's all flat, very easy to adjust all of these colors when we're done. First step is just to, let's get a color for this tree stuff slash horn stuff. So yeah, I can at any point I can play around and change any of these colors. That is also the beauty of this particular style. Boom. So slightly changing the colors from what we had in the thumbnail, but the general idea is very much the same. Now I think we have, that needs to be still blue, as does that. But yeah, the rest of this I think is good. Let's do that ear. So I'm doing a lot of like quickly swapping between paint bucket, which is G, and brush. Now, if this was like basically the higher quality and more time I spend, the more I create layers for these different sets of lines, right? So you could easily make, you know, like many of these different elements here to be different layers, and that would probably help things to separate and also help to flat things and make it look better. So for instance, you know, it would be pretty easy to put these horns on their own layer, and that would mean that, yeah, look, doing all this would be quicker. But it does add a little bit of extra complexity to the next few stages. But as I've said before, doing this, the catharsis of tracing, is a really good way to warm up during the day, and it's good to remember all the things we did, and I think that touching all of them allows us to better think about what we're going to do. I think sometimes if it's all just done for us, it can be, I can feel a little bit disassociated from all the different elements. So this is a good way to kind of think about, oh, okay, yes, that is there. Yes, this is here. Yes, I did do that. So purposely leaving some of these tree colors. The leaves are going to be done in a minute. And again, I'd say this is probably the most critical sort of overlappy thing that we're going to have in the whole image, because it's really the foreground. It's very it's very relevant, very obvious if we get it wrong. There are many other bits that are just not as critical by half. Right, now that is an ear. Forgot about that. That is an ear. Nope, it's not going to work, obviously. Oh, there we go. Get this one, that one. So yeah. Well, all right. Now I got that bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's happening there? So that works. What am I missing? Oh, yeah. It's often surprising the degree of like small pixels here or there that can really affect this. So here we got, I think, just slightly different, almost skin tone colored wrap. All right, so we have this quite bright color for these leaves. And I'm going to try and keep that because I do think it's good. But as I always say, there's so many tools in Photoshop to manipulate the color. It is one of the reasons why it still has some advantages over all the other things that are, probably much better from an ethical and monetary standpoint to adopt. But yeah, I feel like Photoshop still has the edge in being able to say, I want this color to be a slightly different color, and there's probably 10 or 20 different ways you could do it. So there's always that feeling of freedom for me anyway. So selecting the color of the tree, and I've set the opacity to 50% on the brush. And this is allowing me to go through and play around with this. Setting it back to 100. Cleaning up this edge. Right. Gonna clean up this edge. But yeah, like if this stuff is kind of a bit messy, yeah, I don't care. It's really, really not that important. What I am going to do is try and put that back there. And then I think this will be a good way to get a better feeling for what's gonna work and what's not gonna work. All right. So yeah, still early days, still putting it together. This is another phase in the line and color process where stuff just sort of doesn't, right? Hasn't really come together yet. That's fine. Just takes time. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. And yeah. I think having some metallic kind of color here. Let's do these. All right, getting there. And I think like this, let's get all of this. I think part of the idea here was that these guys are, this is a little bit darker than the rest of it. All right, So here we've got some stuff that needs fixing. I'm just jumping around like a crazy person. There is no rhyme or reason to any of this. Got this here. Again, high contrast areas are a lot harder to flat. You really see when they don't come through. None of this will matter too much. This will all come out in the wash. It's only the very focal areas where you're going to change the feeling of something. If there's a little bit of messiness here or there, again, unless it's going to be printed on a giant wall or something like that, it's not going to matter at all. There we go. Boom, boom. All right. Cool. All right. Boom, boom. So yeah, another thing that's good to note in terms of doing costume design is don't do this. Don't have these silly bracelet things. They're a huge pain to draw and flat. If I just made this 1 or 2, it would have cut the whole thing down by a massive amount. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, super important. I think, again, it reminds me of that classic anecdote that I like to bring up, that they kind of realized at Disney early on that every single button they added to a character added like some obscene amount of money, like $20,000. So if you think about, right, like a character had a shirt on and how many buttons are on that shirt. The more buttons, the more money that character cost to create, like overall. Yeah, super worthwhile thinking about that kind of stuff because it directly relates to, like, literally, I mean, it is literally your effort if you are creating one of these sort of comic books, right? You can't escape it. It just is going to take you a lot longer. But yeah, not for video games. Video games completely different, but for this, it's a real major factor. So what I want to do is put some of the other bits and pieces in first before I adjust the hair color. So I'm going to kind of put... right. So like that's kind of what we've got. Right, something very much like that. And again, you can't really see these things except that we wanted to put some of this back here. So all this stuff does take time for sure, but I'm going to do just a very half-hearted go at it, and I reckon it'll be fine. So again, just doing very rough. You can see I haven't flatted any of that well, but it has given me the effect I want. All right. Now, similar thing here. Similar thing there. Right, getting the basics in. Yeah, I feel like that could be... that could be a little bit better. So adding a little bit more color vibrancy, I think this will all get toned down in the end. Oh. All right, so I'm going to select the red. I'm going to select halfway, i.e. 50%, and I'm going to paint over. This kind of mixes the colors. And this is going to allow me to, again, get like a sort of a greeny color, but I'm homogenizing it with the other one. So basically just took a green and I mixed it with the orange. That gives me a good sort of medium gray base that is actually going to do what I want. So again, the idea here is to give us a feeling that these guys are kind of getting blown up a little bit, or exploded. Right. I haven't done a lot of explosions in this particular style, so I'm not really 100% sure what I need to pay attention to or do. Just kind of being pretty vague with it. Again, as I said, I think this will kind of come out in the wash, but we'll see. Yeah, so that's just basically it, and I'm literally just gonna sort of be like, that's done, right? It's just a basic compositional element that's gonna help separate some things. Here I've got this, right? And yeah, got some bright, right, sort of colors here. You can see this is looking very empty now. So just make it darker as a way to overcome that a bit. Boom. All right, yeah, again, super simple. And again, we'll start exploring ways to start to blend these colors and make it a little bit more nuanced. But yeah. Because yeah, I think like sort of here, all right, like this character is obviously character is obviously a lot lighter. Let's do this. Put just gonna be super rough with this. Brutally rough. But it's in the background, and I think what will happen is it's all going to get mushed down, because most of what I'm doing is I'm drawing in the line of color style for sure, but I'm thinking very much in terms of the painterly effect, right? Like how does the how does the paint work? So I got this one. Yeah, boom. All right. Super simple. So again, there's a lot of tricks we can use, right? There's a lot of things we can do. Like this is very, right? It's very sort of messy, right? What I got here. let's see if we can get some blue. I mean, you know, but this is meant to be like foreground, right? So it's not meant to come forward. If you're running into issues like that, the other pencil tool that I use is this, right? And this is where we can create like a tiny bit of texture if you are having trouble, right? If you need to go a lot quicker, but you kind of can't, this can be a good idea. So yeah, I think I'm gonna maybe try add a little bit of, right, this kind of texture here. Again, super rough. But trust me, well, I mean, don't trust me, but I think it's gonna come good. All right, so here we got, again, this kind of green. And again, I'm using that sort of texture. Right, as like a base. We've got this one kind of under here. So again, you know, this is another technique. It's not necessarily the best. It's not necessarily going to be the cleanest, but you can kind of start this way. And because I think a lot of this stuff is going to end up yeah, sort of really in the background anyway, I don't think we're going to notice this too much. And the other thing is, I'm going to be adding a lot of texture over the top. So having a little bit of extra texture here is not going to be a bad thing. So kind of what this means is like where I do add detail, right? It's going to work. And where I don't, I might still have a bit of stuff there, right, to kind of save me. Now again, I'm being super rough with this, but there is like a sort of a scumbling pattern here that, right, like does make some sense. It's not all just complete chaos. And this does create like an interesting sort of texture here. And I think once we add some stuff at the top, we'll clarify with the style. Well, so again, another reason why process is so important, right? I need to know that these things I'm doing are going to turn out. I need to have confidence. I need to, you know, have practice techniques again and again. Once you do that, it becomes a lot easier to then, you know, let go, be creative, chill out as we're you know, doing things. If you are, you know, experimenting every time, then it's very hard to focus on, you know, the story, the narrative, the things that I think are important. Oh. All right, so sort of in the weeds there, literally. Oh, you know what I didn't do is I didn't draw leaves over the top. I was going to do that. Might not need it. Let's see if I can add some. Might be able to do it graphically. Let's see. All right, so I'm kind of done there. What I need to do is, as I said, once I've sort of got all that stuff in there, Control H to hide, Control U to do it, what I'm going to do is, yeah, select her kind of skin, right? So just making it a little bit more pink. Now I've got that, it's easy to go and add some extra stuff. All right, gonna select the skin tone, gonna add, oh yeah, that's lagging badly. Gotta add some stuff to get like a pinker set of lips. Gonna go slightly darker for the top lips to pretend that we have kind of shadow there. That might help. Again. I don't know. Let's see. What did I have? Yeah, that. Let's make it a little bit more red. Let's do the ears. It's probably a bit too much. So I've selected the skin here so I can kind of go out. Oh man, I did this again. Keep just treating that as hair. Oh. Do this carefully. Carefully. And here is where we have the hair. Oh, that makes a little bit more sense. See. Control. There, we got that back. Going to hit 30%. I'm going to put some of this on her nose. Again, these are things that I might not do, but because you know, the face is huge, right? It's maybe worth putting a little bit of extra stuff in there. Okay. I think these ears are a little bit much. So I'm selecting the skin color. I set this for 20%. And I'm just going to kind of, right, like keep clicking until it kind of makes sense. Now I'm going to select that. Let's select 100%. Control D, Control G. 100. There we go. There, boom. So you can see now that I've got this slightly brighter, you can see I've got the skin slightly brighter. You can see these things really easily. I can set that to a 50% and then I can put in the shadow here. Not that that's necessary everywhere, but maybe just in those focal areas again. That is going to help. Okay. Still not entirely convinced about the whole look, but let's persist, right? Let's keep going. What I need is this green, 100%, and I need to put it where we have leaves. These need to be all green. Boom. Don't. All right. Yeah. I've got this thing in the foreground. Oh, that needs to be, that's sort of putting everything off a little bit. That, don't What are we at? We're at 3.5 hours. We're almost there, folks, I think. Again, you can probably look at the YouTube timeline, or the video timeline, and tell exactly how long it will be. Again, I have no idea, but I think we're almost there. All right, what do we go over here? This thing. So again, the process here is like get it kind of looking all right, and you know, tweak, right? Sort of look at what's happening here, right? I got that. This one, I feel like Control U. We could make this a little bit lighter. And then maybe put a sort of darker color over it. We'll see. Let's play around. So now I'm going to put a layer between everything. Super simple process, but this is going to add a million gradients that's going to completely chug the program. Boom. So that's... So I'm basically just going to go back, look at this thumbnail, see if I can like see how much of this I can get happening, right? Here we have, yeah, super dark up here, right? And then it's gradiating. So we still do have a bit of light there. Next is right behind this guy, right over here. That is right something where we want to put a bit of atmosphere there, get that happening. Right, that goes in the background, as does this guy, right? This goes in the background, but behind this one, right, just want to make sure that this guy's silhouette is a little bit more defined. So we can see now how, again, I'm pushing them into silhouette. Right, again, same with this. Still don't like her face. Still don't think it's working very well. Anyway, what was I saying? Boom. Now that is not orange in the thumbnail, so we won't have that there. But you can see that this gives it that kind of fiery look, which again is not necessarily part of the thumbnail. Where do we have this? Yeah, let's try overlay there. Let's try hit that with a blue so we see that color contrast come through. Oh, that's an eraser. Well, that's why that didn't work. Yeah, so really trying to get that blue there. Now again, just creating color separation, playing around. All of this can change. This is also part of the really sort of simple, easy way that this functions. Now, keeping that there. Let's add this sword. New layer. I feel like I should probably play with that, make it more interesting, but I don't know. I don't know whether it's going to help. All right, where was I? I had this one. I've got the main character. So it's hard to know like how much is going to be useful, right? Blending all of this together, but making it feel somewhat homogenized can be useful. Now let's see and try to see if we can remember what happened here. Now one of the good things is, right, we kind of had this, and I can just literally drag this over. Now it's quite small, but it's because it's a gradient. I can just sort of make it bigger, right? And here we can see that's going to give me the kind of effect that I want. So it's kind of doing it's kind of creating the graphic shape breakup that I think is kind of interesting. We probably have a little bit too much kind of orange in some of these places, right? Like yeah, it might be good to keep it graphic. And also, yeah, anyway, keep playing. The other thing I'm going to do is add some grain. And I think, if I remember correctly, I actually had some better grain from this file. So let's see if that's the texture. Yeah, let's see if I can drag this across. Boom. Boom. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of cool. All right, get rid of that. That's going to completely destroy the computer. But you can see, like I feel like the dynamism of it is working, right? I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's kind of cool. Still a few little tricks, though, that I think we can employ. This is an interesting one. What I'm going to do is take everything there. Well, actually, first let's see if I can get this. I feel like what I want is this character's silhouette to pop a little bit more. Right? Like some real. So I'm just adding some overlays, right? Trying to make some stuff pop. Just sort of adjust the complexity, right? Make sure I've got silhouettes happening here, silhouettes happening there, right? And let's put this back. Yeah, I think that works. I think we're getting there. But I do think that this is like, that's an overlay. Let's see if we can. Dial it back a bit in some places. Maybe not. I think just I'm missing something. Like the balance is not quite right. I feel like maybe this is, again, a bit much. That also, right? We can, like, having things be more graphic there is good. What else have we got? Yeah, I mean, I think like, yeah, a bit of contrast over there is good too. Again, I feel like that's starting to come together. All right. Okay. What else can we do? What I'm going to do is take all of this back, and let's hide that. And we'll do some sort of blur effects. Let's put all this stuff back. And we'll go filter, blur. Ocean blur. Let's set it at the same kind of angle. Boom. Now let's mask that away. Put the texture back on because this really does help sell it. Oh, that's interesting. This thing's going to be huge. What I'll do is I'm going to do crop, delete cropped pixels. And this will just delete a huge amount of stuff because this file is getting epic. There we go. Yeah, I think that's cool. Cool. All right. So we've got our text. And now what we could do is again, make sure we've got some focus. Because some of this stuff is not as well drawn. Oh man, messed up. Forgot to render. Where are we? Boom. Back here. Let's put that in. All right. That should be better, right? Just thinking aloud. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. All right, cool. All right, so now I need to take all that back. Control. So this is the problem with doing that kind of blur stuff. Let's delete that, but we can redo the blur pretty easily. Get what we had. Let's do Control Alt F. Will give you that blur again. There we go. Boom. Yeah, so I think that's working. Again, put the texture on. Cool. So yeah, we can again dial it back, put it where we want, but make sure that we're not wasting time. All right, so the next, I guess the other things we could blur would be basically everything else except the sword. So I think we could take that off. We could, and maybe the branch. Let's hit F again, same blur. It helps if it's all the same. And again, I'm actually just going to do this where we're kind of a little bit between worlds. Again, we don't have to do this, but I think it'll also, when we start to What is that? Where did that come from? Oh man. Let's get rid of that. And where is that? Yeah, get rid of that. All right, let's try that again. All right, boom. Okay, turn all that on. Now, what do we want to blur? What do we want to not blur? Again, that's deleting. Let's go on the mask. Yeah. Again, try and keep some of this detail. And all right, lastly, let's put all the texture back on. Let's put the text back on. Now we can get some of the... Where was I going to? Let's see if we do reduce the opacity of this 2%. That's kind of cool, actually. I feel like that's working. Let's do that instead. Boom. All right, I think we're done. Done fiddling around. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what we wanted. And now I can basically, right, sort of tweak as much of this as I need. And yeah, then we can add a bit of normal finishing touches that I'm often sort of playing around with, such as adding some of this sort of burning stuff. And what we could also do is try and... There's a couple of things we could try in terms of, right, like having some of these leaves flying around. Just put the same thing but make it green. I think this often is going to add a little bit of that chaos. We can then try it again. Sort of standard technique that I'm going to use. Let's put a bunch of it. Then let's make it bigger. Then let's make it feel more like it has motion. Again, I need to make sure it's going in the right direction. So again, simple tricks. I should try and... But they really, for me, are sort of part of the overall kind of like line and color style, right? It's like the particular way that I'm keeping it simple and focusing on texture, right? So even though that, I should probably try and do some stuff when we don't have these, it really does kind of help a little bit. So I think one of the things that sort of happens is like if we look at this versus the thumbnail, right? It's like, well, yeah, it's kind of there. I feel like I really want to make sure, right? Like this guy is a little bit crisper. right? It's like we do all this drawing and then I'm like, oh, don't make it all go fuzzy. And it is kind of annoying here that I've got some weird tangents there that aren't quite working as well as I would like. But I think that's probably all we're gonna have time for on this one. Let's see what we can do. I think I'm gonna put signature over there and play around with this text. It's a bit more interesting, at least. Can try again. Like, what happens if we really sort of push it? See if we put the crop on. Like, does that make it look more interesting? To my mind, it kind of like it kind of takes away a little bit. But like, this feels like now the character is sort of popping forth a little bit more, which is sort of what we want. But I do think that we could also put a little bit more drama in there, and we could punch the levels and do a few other things. So let's try that just quickly. Because we don't have to, now that I've got those red things there, right? I don't have to do everything by overlay. I can do things with adjustment colors, and that could be an easier way because we can use our selective color to help with that. And we can also look at some basic sort of levels adjustment, right? Let's punch up highlights, right? Make it sort of crunchy. That is going to help. And again, often good to, just sort of fade, or what I like to do anyway. Again, none of these things are rules. Just like, around the edge. Let's duck. There we go. The right one. Yeah, we don't need it to be super punchy around the edge, but in the middle, right? That will kind of work. And again, we can go select color range. Let's punch the focal area. Let's increase the gradient on that. Again, this is going to be like pretty sort of extreme. We don't necessarily need to do this, but again, part of the goal and the reason I was kind of doing this is I kind of want to make a better thumbnail for YouTube, and so I'm sort of playing around with the idea of adding extra stuff to it, because I think, like, if I can make the thumbnail good, then it kind of works overall. So that's kind of why I'm like trying to make it really punchy, right? So if I can make it extra punchy, then it'll probably perform better as a thumbnail, which is kind of part of my thesis. So that's why I'm trying to make your eyes bleed with this. So man, we're at probably at 4 hours now. Epic tutorial, but again, hopefully like sort of cool, epic. Is that? I mean, that's pretty that's pretty extreme, hey. I don't know. I'll see what works. Yeah, thumbnail. I don't know. But yeah, pretty epic long tutorial. So if you have stayed this far, I do appreciate it. Super fun. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see what I end up using for the thumbnail, but look, this is the basic idea. And yeah, so I've kind of got a widescreen, right, sort of image that works. If we take the text off, boom, oh, where's the text? That's texture. Yeah, so you can see it's like, kind of works with the texture, with the text on, right? I feel like it kind of, again, it has the busyness. It has sort of what we need. Yeah, so again, widescreen, that gives it that kind of really wide cinematic look. But I also am keeping in mind the YouTube 16:9 / 16:10 kind of frame. So this is kind of hopefully what we'll get. And again, my goal here is to talk about sort of basic composition, how we use basic compositional rules, how we use simple processes to try and get something that, again, will fulfill the needs that we need for the brief. So again, in this, I'm just trying to make something really sort of punchy, so it'll stand out, sort of looks cool. But yeah, I feel like this is sort of interesting. It's promising to me. I'm like, maybe I could do another sort of like comic in this style with the Ara character, the Ara world. Again, had lots and lots of stuff planned for that, but anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. We like the idea of just yeah, putting it up on a website so you guys can read the first sort of tome that I created. Again, totally open to suggestions. Let me know if you got any questions about the techniques or ideas that we sort of went over. But yeah, other than that, good luck with your images. Again, thanks for hanging out. Catch you around. Happy drawing.